Picture this, a lizard that can take down a water buffalo. A predator so patient it might follow its prey for miles, waiting, just waiting. In the warm islands of Indonesia, there lives a dragon that's very, very real. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Dragons? Those are fairy tales, right? Well, not quite. The Komodo dragon is the largest living lizard on Earth. And friends, when I say large, I mean truly magnificent. These incredible reptiles can grow up to 10 feet long and weigh over 300 pounds. They're apex predators that have roamed these islands for millions of years, perfectly adapted, wonderfully fierce, and yet there's something almost prehistoric about them. Isn't there? Something that takes us back to when giants walked the earth. Tonight, we're going to meet these remarkable creatures, discover how they hunt, learn what makes their bite so uniquely dangerous, and explore the islands they call home. So settle in, get comfortable, and let's journey together to the land of dragons. Welcome back to Sleepy Sycamore, where we explore the peaceful wonders of the natural world. Now then, let's start by getting to know our dragon friend a little better. The Komodo dragon, scientifically known as Varanus komodoensis, is a monitor lizard. You see, monitor lizards are a family of reptiles known for their intelligence, their powerful bodies, and their keen senses. But the Komodo? Well, it took all those qualities and grew them to impressive proportions. When you first see one of these creatures, what strikes you is just how substantial they are. That thick, muscular body covered in scales that range from gray to reddish brown, sometimes with a dusty, earthy quality that helps them blend into their environment. Isn't that something? Nature's camouflage, right there in those beautiful scales. Their heads are long and flat, with a rounded snout, and those eyes have a certain ancient wisdom to them, don't they? They're positioned to give excellent binocular vision, helping them judge distances when hunting. And that tongue, oh, that long, yellow, forked tongue that flicks out constantly, tasting the air. We'll talk more about that wonderful adaptation in just a moment. These dragons have 4 powerful legs, each ending in sharp, curved claws. These aren't just for show, friends. Those claws help them dig burrows, climb when they're young, and tear into their meals. And that tail, nearly as long as their body, thick and muscular, it serves as a weapon, a balancing tool, and even a fat storage system during lean times. Everything about the Komodo dragon speaks to millions of years of evolution, of fine-tuning, of becoming perfectly suited to life on their island homes. Let me tell you about where these magnificent creatures live, because it's quite a limited range, and that makes them all the more special. Komodo dragons are found on just a handful of Indonesian islands. There's Komodo Island, of course, which gave them their name. Then there's Rinca, Flores, Gili Motang, and Padar. That's it. In the entire world, these dragons exist naturally on these 5 islands and nowhere else. How wonderful is that? These islands are volcanic, rugged, with a mix of tropical forests, savanna, and some areas of quite harsh, dry landscape. The dragons have adapted to all of it. During the dry season, which can be quite harsh, they're masters at conserving energy, finding shade, and waiting patiently for opportunities. During the wet season, when prey is more abundant, they're more active, more visible. Now here's something that really shows you how adaptable these creatures are. Young Komodo dragons, the little ones if we can call a 2-foot lizard little, actually spend their first year or so up in the trees. You see, they're vulnerable when they're small. Larger Komodos, even their own parents, might make a meal of them. So these youngsters climb into the branches, living an arboreal lifestyle, hunting insects, small lizards, and birds' eggs. They're actually quite good climbers when they're young and light. But as they grow heavier, as that impressive bulk develops, they gradually transition to life on the ground. Isn't that a smart survival strategy? Nature finding a way to give the young ones a fighting chance. Let's talk about what makes these dragons such successful hunters, because this is where things get really fascinating. The Komodo dragon is an apex predator, which means it sits right at the top of the food chain on its islands. There are no natural predators for an adult Komodo, and they've earned that position through some remarkable adaptations. First, there's their sense of smell. Remember that yellow forked tongue I mentioned? That tongue is constantly sampling the air, picking up scent particles and bringing them to an organ in the roof of their mouth called the Jacobson's organ. This allows them to detect carrion, or dead animals, from as far as 6 miles away. 6 miles, friends. Just imagine that sensitivity. The wind carries the faintest hint of a meal, and that tongue picks it up, analyzes it, and the dragon knows exactly where to go. Their hunting strategy is patient. So patient. Komodo dragons are ambush predators. They'll wait along game trails, partially hidden, completely still, for hours if necessary. When prey comes within range, a deer perhaps, or a wild pig, the dragon explodes into action with surprising speed. For such a large animal, they can run up to 12 or 13 miles per hour in short bursts. They lunge, using those powerful jaws and sharp serrated teeth to bite and tear. And here's where it gets particularly interesting, where the science is truly remarkable. For a long time, people believed that Komodo dragons had bacteria-laden mouths and that their bite would cause a deadly infection. The dragon would bite its prey, the thinking went, and then simply follow the wounded animal for days until the infection killed it. But here's the thing, and isn't this wonderful how science keeps teaching us new things? More recent research has shown that it's not quite that simple. You see, Komodo dragons actually have venom glands. Venom glands in their lower jaw that produce a complex mixture of toxic proteins. When they bite, this venom flows into the wound through channels between their teeth. The venom does several things, and they're all quite effective. It prevents blood clotting, which causes the prey to bleed heavily. It lowers blood pressure dramatically, and it causes muscle weakness and shock. So when a Komodo bites large prey, that animal is dealing with deep lacerations, heavy bleeding, dropping blood pressure, and increasing weakness. The dragon doesn't necessarily need to maintain the attack. It can simply follow, patiently, calmly, waiting for the prey to weaken and collapse. Then the dragon feeds. There's bacteria in their mouths, of course, as there is in many carnivores, and that probably doesn't help the prey's situation. But the primary weapon is that venom, combined with those serrated teeth that cause tremendous trauma. Let's take a moment to talk about what these dragons eat, because they're not particularly picky, and that's part of their success. Their diet includes deer, wild pigs, smaller Komodo dragons, as I mentioned, water buffalo, and carrion of all kinds. They're opportunistic feeders. If an egg nest presents itself, they'll dig it up and eat the eggs. If a beach has sea turtle eggs, well, that's a meal. Small mammals, birds, even snakes. And when they feed, friends, they feed with an efficiency that's almost awe-inspiring. A Komodo dragon can consume enormous amounts of food in a single sitting. There are records of dragons eating up to 80% of their own body weight in one meal. Imagine that. A 200-pound dragon eating 160 pounds of food. They have expandable stomachs and flexible skulls that allow them to swallow large pieces whole. After a meal like that, they might not need to eat again for weeks, sometimes even a month or more. Their digestion is quite efficient too. Those powerful stomach acids break down almost everything: bones, horns, hooves. What can't be digested gets regurgitated later as a pellet. And between big meals, they're quite content to conserve energy, to bask in the sun, to wait patiently for the next opportunity. Isn't that something? They've really mastered the art of feast and patience. Now let's talk about their behavior, their daily lives, because there's more to these dragons than just hunting. Komodo dragons are generally solitary creatures. They don't form packs or family groups. Each dragon has a home range that it patrols, though these ranges can overlap with others. When dragons meet, there's usually a dominance display. The larger animal typically wins, and the smaller one moves away without confrontation. But during mating season, which happens around May through August, male dragons will fight each other for the right to mate with females. And these fights are quite a spectacle. The males rear up on their hind legs, supporting themselves with their tails, and wrestle, trying to push each other down. The winner gets to mate, and the loser walks away, usually without serious injury. There's a ritual to it, a structure. Nature's way of determining the strongest genes continue. Now here's something really remarkable about Komodo dragon reproduction. The females can reproduce sexually when a male is available, but they also have the ability for something called parthenogenesis. This is a form of asexual reproduction where the female can produce viable eggs without any male involvement. Isn't that an amazing adaptation? If a female finds herself isolated, perhaps on an island without males, she can still reproduce. The offspring from parthenogenesis are always male, which means if that male survives and eventually mates with his mother, sexual reproduction can resume. It's a survival mechanism, a way to establish populations on new islands, and it's absolutely fascinating. The female lays her eggs in September, usually in abandoned nests built by birds called megapodes, or in burrows she digs herself. She might lay around 20 eggs, sometimes more. Then she guards them for a while, though not as intensively as some reptiles. The eggs incubate for about 7 to 8 months, and the baby dragons hatch around April. These little ones, about 16 inches long, are immediately independent. There's no parental care after hatching. They climb those trees we talked about earlier and begin their lives, hunting small prey, avoiding larger dragons, growing slowly but steadily. Komodo dragons grow throughout their lives, though the growth rate slows considerably as they age. They reach sexual maturity around 8 to 10 years old, and they can live for 30 years or more in the wild. That's 3 decades of hunting, basking, patrolling their territory. Think about that. A dragon that hatches this year might still be prowling those islands in the 2050s. There's something almost timeless about that, isn't there? Let's talk about their intelligence for a moment, because these aren't just instinct-driven creatures. Komodo dragons have shown genuine problem-solving abilities and individual personalities. Researchers have observed them using tools in a basic way, manipulating objects to achieve goals. They can recognize individual humans and seem to remember specific people, responding differently to those they know. In captivity, they've been observed playing, showing curiosity, and even appearing to enjoy certain interactions. They can navigate complex environments, remember the locations of food sources, and plan their hunting routes. For a reptile, this is quite sophisticated cognition. It reminds us, doesn't it, that intelligence comes in many forms, that these ancient lineages have their own kind of wisdom. There's something else worth mentioning about these magnificent creatures, and that's their cultural significance. For the people of Indonesia, particularly those living near Komodo dragon habitat, these animals have been part of their world for generations. There are local legends that say the dragons are siblings to humans, born from the same mother. In one story, a woman gives birth to twins, one human boy and one dragon. The boy grows up to become a prince, while the dragon lives in the forest. Years later, when the prince is hunting and about to kill a dragon, his mother appears and explains that the dragon is his brother. From that day, the people agreed to respect the dragons and share the island with them. Isn't that a beautiful story? It speaks to a relationship of respect, of coexistence. Today, that respect continues, though the relationship has changed. Komodo dragons are a protected species, and their island homes are part of Komodo National Park, established in 1980. The park was created to protect these remarkable reptiles and has since expanded its mission to preserve the entire ecosystem. The dragons are listed as endangered, facing threats from habitat loss, a limited gene pool due to their small range, and climate change affecting their prey populations. Tourism has become a significant part of the local economy, with people traveling from around the world to see these dragons in their natural habitat. It's a delicate balance, providing economic benefits to local communities while ensuring the dragons and their environment are protected. You know, there's something we should appreciate about the Komodo dragon's place in the ecosystem. As apex predators, they help maintain the balance of their island communities. They keep prey populations in check, prevent overgrazing, and when they leave the remains of their meals, they provide food for smaller scavengers. Even their burrows, which can be quite extensive, are sometimes used by other animals for shelter. They're not just living on these islands, they're woven into the very fabric of life there. Conservation efforts for Komodo dragons face unique challenges. Because their range is so limited, any environmental change can have significant impacts. Rising sea levels threaten some of the lower-lying areas where they hunt. Changes in rainfall patterns affect their prey. Human development on Flores brings dragons and people into closer contact, which can be dangerous for both. There have been attacks on humans, though they're quite rare. The dragons generally avoid people, but they're opportunistic and they're powerful. Conservation means protecting habitat, managing tourism responsibly, working with local communities, and continuing to study these animals so we understand their needs better. Scientists are still learning new things about Komodo dragons. Recent studies have looked at their immune systems, which are remarkably robust, allowing them to consume decaying meat without getting sick. There's interest in their venom, not just for understanding the dragons, but because studying animal venoms often leads to medical breakthroughs. Their ability for parthenogenesis is being studied for what it can tell us about genetics and reproduction. Every question answered seems to raise new ones, and that's the beauty of science, isn't it? The more we know, the more we realize there is to discover. Think about the evolutionary journey of the Komodo dragon. Their ancestors were part of a group of large lizards that ranged across Australia and Indonesia millions of years ago. As sea levels changed, as islands separated and came together, as climates shifted, most of these giant lizards disappeared. But on these particular islands, in this particular environment, the Komodo dragon persisted. It adapted, it survived, it thrived, it became larger, developing those remarkable hunting abilities, that efficient metabolism, that patient predatory style. It's a survivor, a testament to resilience and adaptation. There's a certain majesty to the Komodo dragon, isn't there? In the way it moves, deliberate and powerful. In the way it surveys its territory from a high point, tongue flicking, processing information we can't even sense. In the patience of its hunt, the efficiency of its feeding, the solitary nature of its existence. These aren't creatures that need others of their kind for daily comfort. They're independent, self-sufficient, perfectly content in their own company until it's time to mate. There's something we can almost admire in that self-reliance. And when you see one in the wild, when you watch it moving through tall grass or lying in dappled sunlight beneath a tree, there's this sense of witnessing something truly ancient, a living connection to a world that existed long before humans. These dragons have seen the rise and fall of countless generations of other species. They've weathered changes in climate, in vegetation, in the very shape of their islands. And through it all, they've remained essentially themselves, powerful, patient, perfectly adapted. And so we've journeyed to the islands of Indonesia and met one of nature's most impressive predators, the Komodo dragon, with its ancient lineage, its remarkable adaptations, its patient hunting style, and its uncertain future. These magnificent lizards remind us that dragons are real, that nature creates wonders that rival any fantasy. They show us the power of patience, the value of efficiency, the beauty of being perfectly suited to your environment. Thanks for joining me tonight on Sleepy Sycamore. I hope you've enjoyed meeting these remarkable creatures as much as I've enjoyed sharing them with you. If you'd like to explore more of nature's peaceful wonders, I'd be honored to have you back. Until then, friends, sleep well, and remember, there are still dragons in this world.